Good morning, good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome back to another episode of the Know The Score podcast with myself, Harry. Today, Luke Kempner is away, and following on in his good name, we have decided to get another Luke, which is why we have Crystal Palace fan Luke Weezer. How are we doing?
Yes, mate, I'm doing good. I won't be as funny as the other Luke, sadly, but, you know, at least I passed the Luke name on the job application, so that's all good to hear.
How's your weekend been? As a Crystal Palace fan, apart from that?
Yes, very 50-50. Good weekend, building up to Christmas, so you can never complain. But yeah, very weird game, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, before we dive in, if you haven't already, please drop a like on the stream, subscribe if you are new. We've just hit 3,000 subscribers, so thank you all very much, and rate us 5-star on podcast. So yeah, I mean, the thing I want to talk to you first about is Luke Kempner and I always talk about like what's it like to support a club that I suppose has been in the Premier League for a while. I think I was looking at it, you finished between like 14th and 10th every season for like the past 8 years or something like that. So it's very much that, I think last year actually 10th was the highest you've been since you've been back in the Premier League. So I suppose just like I want to hear like what it's like and like what your ambitions are, because I suppose at the end of last year, like Palace were fantastic and you thought maybe this year would start in the same vein, right? And it hasn't quite done. You've been pretty good recently, apart from the result at the weekend. But talk to us a little bit how you come to support Palace and what it's like as well.
Yeah, well, I've been following them for like 15, 16, 17 years now. It used to be like kids a quid, so that's why my dad took me, and then got a season ticket the season we got promoted. So that was amazing.
Not kids a quid anymore.
No, definitely not. Kids 50 quid these days. But so that was really good. And then just stuck with it from then. Palace literally went for administration like 2 seasons before we got promoted. Yeah. So we really was like a freak promotion at the time. And if it was these days, we definitely probably would have got relegated the first season we're down. But so you give them years, and that was great. The years of survival, the first like 5 years, you're just like, wow, we're staying up, we're doing this. But now it's a little bit like, come on, we got to go above 10th. And then you're seeing other clubs, you know, like the Bournemouths, the Forests, obviously doing really well these days at the start. It's annoying because Palace always seem to do really well at the end of seasons when everyone else is on the beach, and then it doesn't really matter. But I think I don't want to go on a rant about Palace, but I do think our owners are a little bit on the complacent side, or they won't back or get us the full 25-man squad we need, and I think that's kind of shown to the start of our season.
Yeah, so I suppose like going into the season, like what do you want versus what do you expect? Like I suppose at times last year, like the squad that you finished last season with, of course, no Elise now, you probably had the ability to be where like a Bournemouth, a Forest or someone like that is, or Brighton is now. It hasn't quite started that way. Like where did you hope at the start of the season you could get to?
When it was like start of the season and it was still transfer window and we had just lost Elise, I said on Twitter or on X, whatever you want to call it, I said I kind of want to battle for top half and do a cup run, because for me, the way we kind of went about business, we kind of lost Anderson, lost Elise, hadn't fully replaced them until deadline day. So around then I was like, there's no way we're gonna be competing for them European spots, especially with Brighton spending a couple $100 million, West Ham at the time spending $100 million. I know they're not doing great now, but when you see that money flying about, but yeah, battle for top half and a cup run is like, for me, what I would have liked to have seen. Kind of got a cup run so far, quarter final, no complaints there, and who knows what will happen in the FA Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunate, of course, to get drawn against Arsenal. Like it's one of those that, and then they put out a pretty good team, and Gabriel Jesus just at the wrong time has found his goal scoring boots, and all of which seem to be against you as he did again at the weekend.
Yeah, very, very frustrating that. Like, probably a player who no one thought would score a hat-trick for the rest of his career at Arsenal. And then he gets 5 goals against us in 6 days. So, it is what it is. People were memeing Palace as well. A lot of our players like to post like their Instagram posts with like religious scripture. So they were just saying because it's Christmas time with Jesus, they were just giving him a bit more love, which is fair enough because Lacroix loves it as well. So it was really nice to see.
He's been pretty good so far this season. I think like start of the season, your defence was pretty shaky, but that sort of back three, like Chalobah, as a Chelsea fan, nice to see him doing well. Lacroix and Mark Gahey are seeming to be forming a bit of a partnership back there.
Yeah, Lacroix is a ridiculous signing. He's only 24 still, and something that's so big for him is his pace is ridiculous. I think he's been our best centre-back so far. Chalopa's got his moments. He does make the odd mistake here or there. I definitely, 1 week, like against Brighton, I'm like, pay them the money. Then against Arsenal in the Cup, I'm a bit like, I got a bit too cocky there. But there is a player in there. And then, Gay's had so much pressure around him and stuff, but he has done really well so far.
Yeah, it's a strong looking partnership now as a back three. Like Lacroix, anyone who plays FIFA knows quite how quick he is. He's a very famous one in that area. But yeah, we'll get on to talk about Crystal Palace. Let's start with the game of the weekend, which was Tottenham, the Super Sunday, Tottenham 3, Liverpool 6. I mean, like, what? It's just actually the most predictable Spurs performance we've probably had so far this season. Normally, they are predictably unpredictable, but this was predictably predictable that they are all over the place defensively. They could have been 5-0 down by half time. Liverpool put up 5.5 XG without a penalty, which is crazy. I think it's the highest XG so far this season, and especially without a penalty to do that is, really, really big. And then you see like Ange with the quotes after the game, like, I just don't know. Interested to hear what you think about Spurs so far this season, because of course they definitely are struggling. Like, to lose to Liverpool is no like disrespect to them, because a lot of good teams are losing to Liverpool at the moment. But it's just the manner in which they went about it again at the weekend. It's just, for a neutral, it's great. It's a fantastic watch and it's a great game of football. But this felt for Spurs fans like he's getting more and more under pressure, it feels like.
Yeah, it is one. You can tell that he's getting under pressure as well with the comments that you're talking about. Like, after the game, to be fair, the media do love to ask him about his injured players every week, especially after a loss. So I can see why he's, getting frustrated. But I mean, I just feel like sometimes managers who are in the Premier League should be able to have a plan B in terms of their tactics. I know it's a much lesser level, well, not much lesser level, but Russell Martin at Southampton was the big example of that, wasn't it? He just was too stubborn to change it. And surely if you want to win stuff, let's say at Spurs, you want a manager who's seen as world-class, who doesn't just have one style that if it gets exploited, is getting exploited every week. So yeah, as you said, very predictable, that game.
Yeah, literally. Luke Kempner, who's normally on, has sent me a voice note. I will play it at 1.5 speed because it is a minute and a half long, but he did want me to play it. Maybe I should have played it at the start, but it does reflect on Spurs' performance this weekend. So,
hello, Harry, and hello, all the listeners of Know the Score. Hope you're all well. Hello, Luke. Thanks for filling in. That's definitely the imperative thing, is that your name is Luke before you can fill in. But thanks so much. You're our first official guest. How wonderful. And I can't believe the day that I can't be there is the day when Chelsea draw against Everton. The attitude and the smugness I got from Harry last week because Arsenal couldn't score against Everton. Oh, how the tables have turned, young Harold. And oh, by the way, mate, I think Arsenal scored 5 goals. How many from open play? Quite a lot, I think. But yeah, Liverpool unbelievable. And I've just watched quite a lot of Ange, and why does he look so defeated? I mean, people have been asking me, should I change the way I play? I can't just flick a switch, mate. It's just who we are, mate. This is how we play. But you know what's going to happen, don't you? They're going to beat Liverpool in the Carabao. You know that's going to happen. But yeah, Liverpool unbelievable, Chelsea floundering, and Arsenal on the rise. How wonderful. Luke, sorry mate, I know you're a Palace fan, but Gabriel Jesus, man. Turns out he's the striker we needed. All the best, boys, and I'll be back for our next episode. What's love?
Yes, he does love to do a Ange Postecoglou impression and Ange's interview after the game where he was asked about more injuries. I do kind of get it. Like, he does have no Vicario, no 2 first-choice centre-backs, and no Udogie. I think Jed Spence has actually done quite a good job so far, and actually it's the opportunity he's finally deserved since they took him from Forest and basically just didn't play him at all for the first 2 seasons. But yeah, I mean, Liverpool absolutely cut them apart. I suppose the big questions we've got to answer now is, like, where do we expect Spurs to go? Like, what is the highest point that we think Spurs are able to get to this season? And can anyone catch Liverpool? Let's start with Spurs, because that's now 1 win in the Premier League in their last 5. They've only won 7 of their 17 games so far this season. They have lost more games than they have won so far this season. It is it just can't. Spurs fans can't be pleased with it. And I mean, it's one of those, a bit like when Ten Hag was on at Manchester United. Rival fans, we want Ange to stay. It's great entertainment for the league, and Spurs are never going to be a massive threat to anything major while he's in charge. So where do you think they can get to? Like, what's the realistic goal for them now this season?
It's honestly crazy to think what could be for them because, yes, they could hit some form, but are they going to sign maybe a new goalie in January? I'm not too sure. So I'm thinking, Europa Conference League at the moment looks like what they could maybe hit. If you're looking, Villa look better than them, Newcastle picking up form as well. You've got Bournemouth and Forest are in there, and Bournemouth and Forest fixtures coming up. A lot of the teams they're playing, actually, apart from the odd one, are bottom half. So it's really, really interesting to see. And yeah, Spurs are really messing up at the moment because, yes, their centre-backs and goalkeeper are so crucial, but they can't keep on going on like this. And with the table as tight as it is, goal difference could play a huge difference as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Exactly. You've got to be able to adapt when you've got injuries like that. Do you see anyone other than Liverpool winning the league? They are 4 points clear, a game in hand, and I'm sure as we do every Christmas, there'll be all the things of, the team at Christmas has won the league, 8 out of the last 9 times or whatever it is, whoever's top at Christmas. Do you see anyone stopping them? There was a little bit of talk like going into this week that Chelsea are close, now we drop points. Arsenal won, City feel like they're massively out of it now. It does feel like, if we put Chelsea in at a 3-horse race at the moment, do you see anyone stopping them? It looks difficult.
Does look really difficult, and I think it looks difficult because the way Liverpool playing as well is really good. Yeah. Comparing it to an Arsenal, I was at that Palace game on the weekend, and Arsenal aren't playing like players who think they can fully win the league, if that makes sense. They're not as confident. They don't have that rocket like Liverpool have at the moment. So yeah, at the moment it does look unstoppable. I think everyone in the back of their heads will always be like, maybe City could do something because it is Man City. It depends what their January's like as well. But at the moment it's looking like Liverpool, and I know you probably won't say it, but Chelsea in the title race as well.
I mean, to be fair, like we'll get on to talk about Everton, and actually I did a little bit of research on Everton so far this season, and actually their defence, not scoring against them is quite a common trait, and people are struggling to break down them. But generally, it's one of those that the gap just gets bigger for us. Let's talk about Manchester City, because as Peter Drury, I'm sure, is absolutely loving the idea of, Manchester City have a crisis for Christmas. That is 12 points off the top, 15 if Liverpool win their game in hand, another loss, a consolation goal for them in what was a pretty one-sided Aston Villa win in the early 12:30 kickoff. 1 win in 12. I have to say thank you to Nottingham Forest for ruining what could be an absolutely fantastic stat going into Christmas, where they wouldn't have won any of their last 12, but 1 win in 12. This was pretty one-sided, right?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Rodgers was amazing for this game. The atmosphere at Villa Park, they were so up for it. You have Duran scoring. Everyone loves Duran, but how can he do it for 90 minutes? And he's proven the last couple of weeks that he can fill in for Watkins when he's off form, and that is really, really crucial. And Villa were looking a bit ropey. They've been a bit inconsistent, but that'll be a huge win for them. And yeah, it's City they're capitulating. I wouldn't even say sometimes that the goals they're conceding are that good. They seem really easy to concede against, and that is just the biggest issue.
Like I wrote this, the space that they give up in their midfield and behind their back line, like they played in behind the whole game, and you just have Duran and Rodgers running in behind. They played Tielemans in the number 10, which is a slightly new role for him at Villa. He's been a bit deeper. He was so good in that role, and his passing ability, they signed him on a free. And it looks like when Chelsea fans spent ages, Thiago Silva was signed on a free, and what he did for us. The Tielemans transfer is looking up there with one of the best free agent transfers that we've had over the past couple of years. Just him playing in behind. This City defence is all over the place at the moment, and it's all well and good if you can stop them having the space in midfield. But when you have Gundogan and Kovacic, particularly Gundogan, who's just not been at it this season, just giving a player like Tielemans so much space in midfield, you're just going to have such issues in a team like Villa playing through you and playing in behind. They are now 7th in the league, which I just never thought we'd see this City team. And actually, if Brighton had won this weekend, which they didn't, they would be even further down the table. So yeah, they are absolutely floundering. I mean, hats off to Aston Villa for a performance they put in like that. A late consolation goal, but we still look at Manchester City and think, how on earth are they going to fix this? Like, we're getting closer to the January transfer window. They've got some decent fixtures over the next couple of games. Like, they've got Everton at home on Boxing Day, and maybe, when we get to our predictions, I predicted City to win that game. I don't quite know why. I predicted them to win every single week over the past 2 months, and it hasn't worked. So my predictions are going that way again. But yeah, I don't know. every week it's like, yeah, they lost, yeah, they look bad, but I think they'll turn it around. But every week we're like, well, maybe they won't turn it around. Like,
it's brilliant. You know what's absolutely brilliant as a fan of a club who's not in the big six, to hear City fans moaning because they haven't won an away game in like 4 games or something, or they haven't won a game or one win in 12. I mean, that's normal for a lot of our fans. So it's great to see them kind of understand what actual pain feels like. And sometimes when it comes to City fans, I bet they celebrate a goal and they're like, you know, they just get up and clap for a little bit because they're used to it. But now, they're actually going to celebrate these goals and understand how much of a drought you can go on and how much these goals mean. It's great.
Yeah, they've got Everton at home, Leicester away, West Ham at home in the next 3. Like, surely you'd got to be backing them to win all 3 of those. But stranger things have happened at the moment. Stranger things have happened. But yeah, Aston Villa, as you say, have been a bit mixed recently. They went on a couple of games where they won a couple back-to-back. I think it was Southampton and Brentford, and they looked a little bit better. Then, of course, they had that loss, I think, last week. And now, they lost to to Forest last week. Then the fixtures coming up, They needed this, it feels like. That is going to be a massive, massive boost to them. I think the Watkins versus Duran debate is really interesting because Duran was doing it off the bench and we thought that would just be what he stayed as. And I still think Watkins is a better player for Villa. But in a game like this where maybe they're going to get less of the ball, Duran really fit in and his performance was pretty good. So I'm interested to see what happens with them long term. Maybe it's, they chop and change every single game who it's going to be. But having 2 strikers like that, it's a good headache to have, I suppose, for Emery.
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, Watkins has been off form and, Duran's bringing so much to the game and some of the goals he scores this season have been so unbelievable. And you forget how young he is as well. So the sky is the limit for him. Villa will be bouncing after that win. And again, it just shows how, Champions League can come into play and affect these club seasons because Villa have been inconsistent around that competition.
Yeah, they're going to have a difficult decision to make in the summer because there's no way that Ollie Watkins and Duran are both going to be at Aston Villa next season. And they're going to have to make a choice. And I imagine they make the choice of keeping Ollie Watkins, but if the form continues for the rest of the season, then maybe they rethink that. But yes, is a good decision to have for them at the moment, but it is going to become a bit more of a headache the closer and closer we get to the summer, and even in January, because if teams are needing a striker, John Duran is going to be one who is top of the list. Absolutely. Let's move on. Let's have a look at some of the 3:00 games. Brentford, they were the home form team. They haven't lost at home. I think the only team not to lose at home so far this season, and they finally get it at the hands of Nottingham Forest, who are now up and very comfortably in the top 4 so far this season. It's just a well-oiled machine. They made a slight change to a back 5. Chris Wood, Alanga, their wing-backs. Oloaina's having an absolutely fantastic this season, whether he's playing left-back, whether he's playing right-back. Were really good. And Brentford have been so good at home this season, just struggled to create the chances.
Yeah, no, this is a scary Forest side because this isn't a Forest side who are going through a blip. This is a Forest side who are the only team to go to Liverpool and beat them. The only team to beat Liverpool this season. They then tear apart Brentford's record, I remember they played Brighton when Brighton were really on form and drew to them at the Amex 2-2, Nuno, at the end of last summer, I was like, wow, he's not going to do well with them. But maybe it just shows how much these financial rules actually played into the minds of some of these players and how much they were affected by that. Now they've added a couple more players, as they love to do, and they're kind of got a system which they've got an 11 who all are exactly what that manager wants, and it's just working perfectly. And I mean, Alanga's coming on so well this season. It's really nice to see him actually flourish post United, but I guess a lot of players actually do that these days. So
it's nice to see. There's a lot of players in that 11 now who have been sort of bit time players for their previous clubs, and now to see all of them doing incredibly well. Like Hudson-Odoi is in there, Alanga's in there, like Chris Wood's been good at previous clubs, at Burnley, but he's never been the levels he's been at. You've got Elliot Anderson, who is incredible for them every single week. They just look, and got Oloaina in there as well, who's a youngster from Chelsea. They look unstoppable, and I know every podcast is like, oh well, they'll stop at some point. We're 17 weeks into the season. They are 4th in the table. They've won as many games as Arsenal have. They've won more games than City, Newcastle United, Spurs. They're only 1 win behind Chelsea so far this season. When are they going to stop? Or are they going to stop?
I can't see it at the moment because, again, Nuno's got this experience when he got Wolves to the Europa League a few years back. You know, he does know how to do it at this level. And I always used to think these kind of managers like Nuno, who are maybe a bit more defensive, kind of starting to filter out. You know, David Moyes is an example. They wanted him gone. But with Nuno, it's like he's got that perfect blend and it's just working against 90% of the teams they're facing. It is a really nice team they've got, and I mean, you'd like to think they'd get a nice team by now with the amount of signings they have made over the years. But really good fan base. It's a fortress there as well. The fans do get behind them, and it's just all coming together for them, innit?
Yeah, it was weird. Like last year, in the past couple of years, their away record was really good, and they struggled at home quite a bit because there was pressure on it, and just, you know, the nature of those games. But this year they've added home form on top of the away form that they've shown in previous years. And they just look unstoppable, not only to beat Brentford, but to stop them scoring at, you know, the funhouse that is the GTEC Community Stadium so far this season. I think there's been more goals there this season than there's been in any other stadium. To stop them scoring at home is like, it just highlights their defence. Like, Matt Sells must be up there for like best goalkeeper so far this season. There's not that many probably that are going to rival what he's doing and, you know, what that Forest defence are doing. Nuno is just building an absolute machine, and every week you expect them to stop it, and every week, you know, they beat Villa. Big result that was, to go away to Brentford and win that as well. Like, just putting these results back to back. So yeah, I find Forest a difficult one to predict. Like, I do think they'll slow down. Like, they've got they've got Spurs at home on Boxing Day. We'll see which of those come out, and then it's Everton away, Wolves away, and then they've got to go back to playing Liverpool at home. Fixtures are, you know, don't look great on paper, but it's difficult to see them losing the way that they're playing at the moment.
No, yeah, definitely it is really difficult to see them losing, and as you said there, you know, keep a clean sheet against Brentford as well. This is why I think it doesn't feel like a blip, because the games they're actually picking up points up as well are really big ones. They're against informed sides, and Brentford were first in the league when you just take into account home games this season. So, you know, they're doing that. Fans are buzzing. It's going to be a great Christmas for them.
Absolutely. And Brentford, I mean, they were without Pinnock, and they were without Vandenberg in their defence, so slightly weaker defensively, but wasn't the best. It probably wasn't the best performance from what we expected from them. They created a couple of chances. They failed to struggle to sort of break Forest down quite a lot. But yeah, this really was a Forest one to remember, and Brentford will want to be moving on a little bit after this, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's just one you kind of got to pick yourselves up and move on to the next one, isn't it?
Another team that won another big away win. Newcastle absolutely seems to be finding their form at the moment. 4-0. They went through a little bit of a blip. Ipswich, no Delap. It'll be one that Ipswich want to forget a little bit. Didn't really create nearly enough in front of goal. Newcastle starting to look very, very good over the past few weeks. And a player, probably one of the biggest unsung heroes in the Premier League, he's getting a little bit this week because he did a couple of good things, is Jacob Murphy. When Newcastle play well, everyone's like, oh, Isak scoring goals. Newcastle play well when Jacob Murphy plays well. And Jacob Murphy had the game of his life at the weekend. He was so good. I think assist, then he scored, and then he had the assist for the fourth goal, the back heel. This guy, when he wants to turn it on, he can turn it on.
It is really interesting to see, because he wasn't really, when Newcastle were dropping in form, he actually wasn't starting them games. And it's like, I think it was Palace kind of the last game they looked a bit shaky, or maybe Brentford. I remember it. I was like, wow, Newcastle looked terrible this season, especially away from home. You know, they didn't get a shot on target against us, and against Brentford, I think they conceded 4 goals or something. So the way Eddie Howe has turned it around, and the way he's done it seems to be by getting Jacob Murphy back in that side. And, you know, it brings them a bit more balance. He's an actual right winger. Before, it felt like Barnes or whoever was in there isn't their priority position to be a right winger. So he's adapted, and Newcastle look brilliant. And if Isaac can stay fully fit this season, then they can keep on climbing.
Yeah, Eddie Howe was talking about Jacob Murphy after the game, basically saying he's so good for a team because he's so unselfish, like he works so hard. And that's often why, you know, he doesn't play 90 minutes every week, because he works so hard and does such a good job. As you say, like, they've been trying to shoehorn Gordon in on that right wing to play Barnes. And no, just stick Jacob Murphy out there for 70 minutes. And then if you want to change it after that, go and do that. But yeah, he has coincided, his form, along with Isak scoring goals, but his form really has coincided with the return of Newcastle to looking a little bit better. Tonali's looking good. Bruno Guimaraes had a really good game as well. yeah, they're really starting over the past couple of weeks to turn that screw. And Alexander Isak, I mean, he is quite some striker. I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams looking and bidding for him. Probably not in January, but next summer, the likes of Arsenal will be going back in for him, I imagine. They'll do well to keep hold on him if he scores as many goals as he is at the moment, because wow, like some of the finishes he's done, like I still go back to the one he scored against Liverpool where he just absolutely put it past I think it was Kelleher at the time. Yeah,
ridiculous. And even, I don't know if you remember last season, but his goal against Everton where he showed he's not just a finisher but he can dribble on the ball. Ridiculous goal that, and he is so good. And I think clubs like Arsenal will want him. I was reading that Arsenal may be a bit worried about his injury history, but I think with a player like that, like, it's not like he's missing 50% of the games. You can utilise him so well. And I mean, he is one of the best strikers at the moment in the Premier League for sure.
Yeah, we saw him had not a great injury record last year when they had to play Champions League and Premier League. And that's the issue if you go to Arsenal, right? There's so many games that if Arteta does to Isak what he has done to Bukayo Saka this week, then you would have an issue. But if they've got Gabriel Jesus, they've got Havertz, then they do have other options on there. But you don't really want to be paying 90 million for Isak to play him once a week or, every so often because you've got the others. But I agree. Yeah, a little bit of a bounce back. They're 8th, sort of 17 weeks into the season now. 7 wins, 5 losses, 5 draws. The fixtures coming up, I think this is a real big test for them. They've got Villa, United, Spurs in the next 3, and they could win all 3 of those, and they could easily lose all 3 of those as well. I would say you were probably going to fall somewhere in between of that, going away to United, away to Spurs. Those are big games. I probably would expect them to beat Aston Villa at the moment. That's the fixture they've got on Boxing Day. But yeah, the last couple of games, they've really started to turn it around. Before that, they went through that little bit of a blip. They lost to West Ham. They drew to Liverpool, which was a really good result. Then they lost as well. So starting to look a little bit better. And as we said with Ipswich, not one that they'll really want to remember. They'll be moving on and they'll need Delap back. Like they really struggled for goal threat and not having that sort of focal point up front, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And he is so good at, when they need to bring possession and higher up the pitch, he's so good at holding it up or just causing an issue for the defenders, giving them less time on the ball. But some of the goals that they conceded, like it was again goalkeeper passing it out to a defender for absolutely no reason. You can see the Newcastle player run into that defender and that goalie thinks, I'll just pass it there. So their home form, that's what worries me about Ipswich, because I don't think they've won yet at home this season. You're meant to make your home stadium your fortress in the Premier League in the first season back, and they were 1-0 up to Bournemouth, lost 2-1 after like 2 goals in the 88th minute or whatever. Palace, we beat them 1-0 as well. Now they've been battered by Newcastle. You can't be picking up points away on the road all the time for a promoted team. And as you said, if now Delap's missing, if these fixtures are coming around, he's back for the next game, so that'll be good. But it just showed, one player missing and it just looked completely different.
They've got a rough run of fixtures. They've got Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Fulham away, Brighton at home, City and Liverpool as their next 6 before they finally play Southampton at home in Gameweek 24 in February.
Wow.
It doesn't look great for them, particularly with Wolves looking a little bit better this weekend. We'll talk about, like, you've got Palace and Everton with a much better run of fixtures. So, yes, they haven't nearly capitalised enough, I think. They look like they may be bang in trouble and struggling. They've won 1 in 5, and that was the win away at Wolves last weekend. A team that is crawling their way away from the relegation zone, West Ham picking up another point here. It's probably not too much to report on this game. 1-1 draw with Brighton. Brighton not really been that exciting recently. They're probably the team recently that have dropped off. We're seeing the likes of Newcastle bounce back. We're seeing improved performances from several teams. Brighton are probably the team going in the opposite direction. But West Ham up to 14th now, 4 points above the sort of teams below them. They're probably doing enough. And, so much of this season has been speaking about him getting sacked. And it doesn't look like he's going to need to now.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting there because when they hired Lopetegui, I thought he's very similar style to David Moyes. And they've been crying out for someone to change that, Someone like a Potter, I didn't know if he was available in the summer because he just seems to be enjoying his time on the beach these days.
He
but,
does.
They've got these points over the last 3 weeks that have been massively important. They do have such a good team. Like, they spent a lot in the summer, as you expect when you have a rebuild. Their players are far too good to be battling relegation. They need to be pushing away. And, a point against Brighton is always good at the moment. Brighton definitely have dropped off, but I think when you have a young manager, you've got to give him time. Like, he's not been experienced to top flight football, and the Premier League is the hardest division. So if you're a Brighton team, it's a bunch of young players, a young manager, you're going to have these type of weeks or months, aren't you, where you're not going to be able to pick up the same results you did at some points.
Yeah, they haven't had a win in 5 games now, though. It is a little bit, not concerning, but the performances have not been that great. And winless in 5 is not what they want to be seeing at the moment. They've had some decent fixtures in that as well. It's not like they've been losing to top teams. I think the biggest talking point of this game is how on earth Purvis Estupiñán is still on the pitch. How on earth he's not been sent off? Like, I don't really care he got the ball. Like, it's a dangerous tackle. He's caught him after he's got the ball. Both feet are off the floor. We spoke about it on the pod when Martinez did it, I think, against you guys earlier on in the season. If your both feet are off the floor, you should be sent off. I don't care if you win the ball or you don't connect the man. You should stop that tackle happening in football. If both feet are off the floor, you should be sent off. And I don't care the rest of it.
Yep, no, hands down, that was a potential leg breaker. There was so much contact on Kilman as well that I think it's lucky somehow. I think it just showed why you need shin pads, because you could literally see his shin pad moving off the leg under the sock from where Estupiñán hit him. But this is the problem with Howard Webb, I think, at the moment. He's brought in some very strange rules, and some people are saying technically the refs stuck to the guidelines for that, but that's where the refs are just too... it just feels like they're robots sometimes. They don't understand football, and you can't be being that dangerous in a tackle as a footballer and not getting a red card. Like, especially now with VAR, they see that slow-mo stuff looks even worse in slow motion. So
exactly, if they're seeing it in slow-mo, how on earth has he not been sent off? The shin pads thing, on a complete tangent, is really weird, because players are doing more and more to not wear shin pads, and shin pads are getting smaller and smaller. I always see it on like TikTok and stuff of players. I know there's been like cases where players have actually taken them off just before they've gone on the pitch, and they're getting smaller and smaller. Like when I was playing at school, you used to have the whole shin pad, like the ankle guard, the lot. Everything was massive. You have to have huge socks to cover it up, and now players are playing with this little like
crazy
tiny shin pad, and if he had those on, he would have been in real trouble. So I mean, maybe players should keep wearing proper shin pads.
Yeah, it's a good advertisement for them, wasn't it?
It was. The companies making real ones should go and put that clip in and say, this is why you need to wear shin pads.
Yeah, get Kilman as your cover star for that. Get him on the promos. It'll be easy money for them.
Just like Puma is getting Cucurella on theirs with him slipping over. This could be a slightly better promo than maybe they had. Let's not dwell on it too much. I think Estupiñán should definitely have been sent off. Before we go on to the evening game, a reminder to please rate 5-star if you're on podcast, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Drop any comments you have or questions in the comment section down below. And halfway through the pod, we always do a weekly topic or a weekly question. And this week we have a prediction for those of you listening. So we have Boxing Day football is always known for having an incredible amount of goals. So there are always like games galore that have 5+ goals in them. So what we want is predictions for the Boxing Day games and the games on the 27th, is how many goals you think we will see across those 10 games. I think the most ever on Boxing Day there was 6 games and there was 28 goals, to set you as a bit of an example. So what is that? 4.5 goals per game on that Boxing Day. We want it as a total of the 10 games that we've got this weekend. I've looked at my predictions for the results. I've gone for 38 goals to be scored across those 10 games. So that's almost 4 goals a game. Luke, your predictions?
I was thinking about 34 in my head, so I'm going to go with that. I do think it can be. There's some very exciting fixtures, and I think this season anything can happen. So let's get the goals in. 34,
38. Let's see if I'm sure there'll be someone offering over 40 goal boost on some bet, or Sky will be all over it or something like that. So let us know your predictions in the comments of how many goals. I'm going 38. Luke is going 34. But let's talk Crystal Palace, Arsenal. The game in the 5:30 kickoff. I'll let you go first as a Palace fan.
I don't know what to say, because actually, stats wise, we had the same shots on target. And we scored 1 goal and they scored 5. So it kind of shows you Arsenal were extremely, extremely clinical. But I do think there was some defensive lapses in that game. Corner, like the second ball, that you just got to get that, Their third goal, Havertz, again, it just felt like that wasn't needed. The big moment for me was 2-1. Mateta through on goal. Should make it 2-2. If he makes that 2-2, it's a completely different game. But, then that happened, and I think just 60 minutes in we just kind of gave up, which was a bit annoying to see. But yeah, as I said, it wasn't a game where I thought it was a 5-1. We actually pressed them, we caused them big problems as well. Arsenal just decided to have some fun, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, you had no Eze, you had no Munoz, who was suspended, and Chalobah didn't start. Was that Chalobah benching just minutes based, or you think there's a chance that Richards keeps his place?
I would think it was mainly minutes based, but with a little bit in the back of Glasner's head that Chalobah against Arsenal during the week wasn't great. But I'd expect Chalobah to go straight back in. And obviously no Eze's a big miss, no matter if he isn't scoring at the moment. The presence he has on the pitch, it means 2 or 3 players are pressing him, so it gives us more space. But it just shows how crucial wing backs are, or Daniel Munoz is to our team, because he is like a right wing back. He is so good at that. He tackles, he presses, so can't wait for him back.
Yeah, I brought him into my fantasy team this week
I saw that.
for that Arsenal fixture. We'll talk about my -8 later on. Do we know how long Eze's out for?
He said he should be back for Bournemouth. It's apparently it was a swollen foot he got against Brighton, and then he hit it against Arsenal during the week, so sounds a bit like precaution, but it's probably a decent time to do it, lots of fixtures coming up.
Yeah, it feels like, no offence, but it feels like one of those, and I know we spoke about Forest maybe having done it when they lost to Arsenal earlier on, that you sometimes, particularly over this period when there's a lot of fixtures, you have to pick your battles, and throwing Eze in at home to Arsenal, where you're probably not expecting to get any points from. If Chalobah does need a rest, you've got no Munoz. Maybe it was one of those where he's gone, right, I'm not going to throw Eze in if I don't want to start Chalobah, and there's no Munoz. I'm just going to take what we can get here. Sarr's looking pretty good. I really like in the front three that you're creating once Eze's in the team. I think that as soon as one of that front three drops out, whether it's Kamada or whether it's Nketiah, they're not at the same level. But Eze, Mateta, Sarr, it's looking pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, it's really exciting, but you'll maybe quite shocked to hear that Eze is being absolutely slated, I'd say, by about 80% of our fan base this season. Yeah, really bad. Like, people are actually wanting him to be dropped. Like, it's getting that bad. I don't personally agree. I think he's still bringing a lot to his game. When he comes back from an injury, he struggles a bit. He's probably missed about 4 one-on-ones this season, so if you've had him in your FPL team for the start, you've been massively unlucky, and that is definitely where he needs to improve. Yeah, literally, him and Munoz at the start. But, but for me, he's got to be in that team. It doesn't matter. He does do a lot in the build-up to goals. And
who would play if it's not him? That's the issue. I don't think you've got someone to come. Like, Nketiah's not been great. Kamada's not been great. So you don't really have a backup and a choice. And when you've got a player like Eze, you kind of have to give him the run of the green, no?
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, Sarr's really grown into it now. He's understanding that role more, and his pace is just ridiculous. So it's really helpful. It'll be interesting to see if we bring in another attacker in the January window, because for me, squad depth is just so big for Crystal Palace, and we don't have it.
Have you got money to spend in January?
No clue, because we didn't. I think we actually made like 5 mil profit this summer, but we don't like to spend because Steve Parish is a millionaire. He's not a billionaire, so he doesn't have that money. And John Textor may be selling his shares, so January's looking a bit worrying in terms of like if we did want to push on, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, looking at Arsenal, I actually thought, and I'm being very positive about, I didn't think Saliba had a great game. I think he was pretty. There were a couple of opportunities where I just think he was just not nearly switched on, and he was really complacent in this game. He doesn't close down Sarr nearly enough for the goal. Like, he just lets him shoot. He keeps backing away. He doesn't make himself big either. He's side on and just basically lets Sarr shoot. And it is a good finish, but he doesn't particularly do enough. The big takeaway from this, first of all, is Gabriel Jesus. Maybe he's the open play goal threat that they need. Like, they've been struggling a little bit from open play to score goals recently, and maybe Gabriel Jesus in that team alongside Havertz is going to be enough for them to start creating a few open play goals. But his finishing's not been great for them, so that's one we're going to keep an eye on. And a big headline, of course, is Bukayo Saka. Went off early on, holding his hamstring. He tweaked it earlier on for England. He did it again when he played against us, and it looks like it's fully gone. It looks bad. If you haven't seen it, he's been, away with crutches. Arteta's apparently speaking this afternoon, where we might get an update, although Arteta never really gives us an update on anything.
Nope. That
is going to be a major loss, no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's already got 10 assists this season, or 11 assists this season. He's a crucial player for them. Similar like an Eze, he gets 2 defenders on him, gives more space to the other players. he is so good at what he does, and Arsenal don't have many other great wingers. I wouldn't even say Martinelli's been great this season either, so he is your focal point on the wings, and it's worrying. And yeah, he's just getting overused, and it happens these days to players. They get so overused by managers, and the fixtures, there's so many more, and there's just like, why is Saka? I saw The Athletic earlier, apparently Saka came on in the last 20 during the Cup in the middle of the week, and they were like 3-1 up then or something, and you'd be thinking, why are you doing that? But Arteta said something like, oh, when Saka's in the squad, he wants to play. So then for me, that's a case of like, who's the manager? You know, you don't need it to play him in them situations. So maybe it's a little lesson that needed to happen for Arteta.
Yeah, I agree. He's done it before, and it feels like he's finally going to pay the price. Like, Saka's pretty robust, so he's got away with it, but it feels like he might finally be looking to pay the price on exactly how long he's going to be out for. Maybe it won't be too bad, but early reports are it's going to be sort of weeks for them, weeks for him, which is not great. Let's move on. Everton 0, Chelsea 0. I mean, the weather, I'm going to start off by complaining. The weather was as bad for that game as it was when the Merseyside derby got postponed, but we're not Liverpool, so we had to go and play. We had to go and play away at Everton in this condition, so it is what it is. To be fair, I was a bit disappointed by the performance, but away to Everton in December in the conditions, like, it's not the end of the world. Jackson had a couple of chances, they had a couple of chances. There wasn't really that much in the game. Some stats on Everton: they've lost 2 of their last 13 games. They've only conceded a goal in 1 of their last 5 matches, last 6, so 5 clean sheets in their last 6, and only 4 goalkeepers in all of Europe's top 5 leagues have more clean sheets than Jordan Pickford this season. Atletico Madrid, Milan, Leipzig and Real Sociedad. After them, it is Jordan Pickford with 7. So breaking Everton down, as Arsenal saw a few weeks ago, and I gave Luke absolute hell for it. It's not an easy thing to do. And they go up against City, so we'll see if City are able to break them down next weekend. But yeah, it was just a story of that. They lack goal threat, but they're pretty good defensively, and we didn't take the couple of small chances that we had. I don't think either team even reached 1 XG in this game. So yeah, wasn't the most exciting though.
Yeah, no, this feels like the typical Dyche cycle at Everton these days. You know, they are so bad at the start of the season, and then they just click, and then they're really annoying to play against, and it's happening. But they do have some very decent attackers, you know, and it was a very interesting game. Jackson maybe should have scored that shot with Pickford. But yeah, so I think Everton are probably in the table where they should be, but it's just going to be very interesting to see if Pickford gets that golden glove this season, because I do think he's in with a chance of it.
Well, if Arsenal keep leaking silly goals, I think Liverpool could also be up there, although they conceded 3. Yeah, and of course, Everton have got new owners this week as well. So that is going to be a big boost. And we wonder if they're going to try and do something in January with new owners, because they've got some good attackers, although they massively lack goal threat, right? They need a player who can push a result like this of a 0-0 draw into a 1-0 win. That's the player that they're missing. And Calvert-Lewin has just really not been at it. Ilman and Dye's not been bad. Jack Harrison's had their time. They're still missing Dwight McNeil, which feels like quite a big thing for their creativity. They still feel an attacker or 2 away. But then, do they really want those big attackers in a Sean Dyche system? Maybe not. But yeah, that feels like what they're missing. But they're so difficult to break down. So hard.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who's in that defence at the moment, does it? Because they're just all so drilled to Dyche. And yeah, you're right, they don't have that focal point. I wondered if Calvert-Lewin was going to have a really good season this season, because he's out of contract in the summer, but he's playing himself out of any decent moves this summer. And Everton will be really interested with their new owners, because I think they've got about 12 to 15 players who will be in contract by the end of the season. So they're going to have a huge rebuild, and it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, Calvert-Lewin's a massive one, because it doesn't look like they're going to offer him a new contract, which means they're going to let him go on a free, which for a club who is on the brink of financial fair play every season, because we've seen it recently where they've had point deductions, to let Calvert-Lewin go on a free has the ability to be catastrophic for them. Because that's like their big money player, and if he goes on a free and they then have to sign a replacement and they get nothing in for Calvert-Lewin, that is problems for them.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it'll be really interesting, because I bet wherever he goes next, he'll probably do well. It's just sometimes these players do need that move, but the fact they've managed to get him down this far over his contract and actually him leaving on a free is just, for a club like Everton who suffered so much with PSR, is a big worry for them. But have to see what they do.
Who's going to take him? Who would take him at the moment?
He got linked to Newcastle heavily, didn't he? As like the Isaac cover. But
I mean, they're
I don't
not
know
going
if
to take him now, presumably.
Surely not. So maybe like a whoever gets promoted next season type club.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe if
yeah,
Leicester need a new striker, if Jamie Vardy's getting older and older and they stay up, then maybe they look at him. But yeah, I mean, if he's on a free, right, then loads of clubs will be looking at him, because what's the worst that's going to happen? You pay his wages for a year and then you sell him for an actual bit of money. Like, it's not the worst. So there probably will be teams knocking around for him. But his goal scoring record combined with his injury record means, yeah, he's not very desirable at the moment. The only other talking point from this game, have you seen the Jordan Pickford tackle?
From the corner, was it? Yeah, it kind of gave me them Van Dijk vibes a little bit.
Yeah.
Not as heavy, but similar. And yeah,
it's not as heavy because he doesn't connect with him, but it feels as heavy, the tackle in itself. It's one of those that I like. It feels like he should be sent off, but it's not a pen because he doesn't actually hurt him. He doesn't actually connect with him, so it's not a foul. But should be sent off just by doing stupid tackles like that. That just shouldn't be allowed. It's really reckless from him again. Like, if he makes proper contact, it is along the lines of that Virgil van Dijk one from a couple of years ago. I didn't like it. I don't like to see it. But yeah, it didn't make enough contact to really write headlines about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think goalies do actually do them sort of tackles quite a lot, because basically it's just like do whatever to stop that player from shooting. Yeah. And it's a technique these days, and they do love to lead with their feet a little bit. So yeah, it's definitely risky from him to do it. And I felt like there was no need either. But you know,
no, I agree. Yeah. Onto a game which probably again doesn't need loads. Fulham 0, Southampton 0. There were about 5 or 6 half chances for Fulham. Nothing for Southampton virtually at all. Not really one we need to write headlines about this. I mean, Southampton was slightly better defensively than we've seen, is probably the headline. They didn't concede a goal, which is very, very surprising. And it only took Russell Martin to be out of the building for a week, and suddenly they look much better defensively. Ramsdale was back in goal, slightly better. But yeah, what do you think on we'll start with Southampton, because probably not the best performance from Fulham.
Yeah, no, it's a very positive sign, positive for the new manager coming in as well. You know, he's seen some players fight there as well, and that's when you're at this point of the season and you're doing as bad as Southampton, you just need to see that fight if you're fans, because a lot of them will probably accept that they're going down. So yeah, they had that, and I just think for them, though, they are going to be lacking a goal scorer. Like, you can't be leading the line with Armstrong and expect to stay
absolutely
up.
Not.
But yeah, positives to take.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty doomed, aren't they?
Well, I think their points tally is like
6.
basically the same as Derby, isn't it? So
yeah, I mean, I think they're on 6 now. Yeah, 6.
So
1 win, 3 draws.
I'm not going to say too much because they play Palace in like 2 weeks, so I'm definitely don't want to jinx that. But yeah, no, it's not looking great for them, is it?
No, I mean, slightly better defensively, little bits of improvement. But I just find it really strange that they sacked Russell Martin when they did. Like, why did they wait 16 weeks into the season when they're basically relegated and then sack their manager? Have they found a replacement yet?
Yeah, they got that guy who was at Roma for like 2 months this season. I can't remember his name, but
that bodes well.
Yeah, he's known for doing it. He did all right with Genoa. I think he actually got hired and sacked 3 times by Genoa across his career. But I think it's Italy, they love to sack managers and rehire them because of the money. But yeah, he's known for being able to like do all right with a kind of smaller project. The Roma job was clearly too big for him. So again, it's another one where you just don't know really. It doesn't seem like one where they've gone, we need that manager to keep us up. It more maybe looks like a long-term appointment. Yeah,
it's one of those that are probably accepting their fate, really.
Yeah.
And they've gone with someone who's maybe better for the project. But then, isn't that what Russell Martin was, the project? So they've gone from one project manager to another, but let's see what happens. I just don't think the sacking of Russell Martin was a particularly good idea. What did you think of him?
I kind of agree with you a bit, because I think they didn't want to sack him, but then the 5-0 loss and the fans turning kind of swayed him. And I think that's also shown by the fact they hired this manager who wasn't even a known target for them like a week ago. I think obviously he did a decent job with them in the Championship. You know, straight back up is a very good achievement when they did lose a lot of good players, and he had a good style for the Championship. But you know, if you're gonna come out in interviews and be stubborn, maybe always blame other people other than yourself, then it's not gonna work with the fans, is it? Look, as proven by one game against Fulham, they've kept a clean sheet. Why couldn't he just be a bit more defensive? Like, not asking for much.
It's not just being more defensive, it's stopping his goalkeeper passing it out to their centre-backs all the time and it just going horribly wrong every single week.
Literally, yeah, just do that one tactical change. And as we saw against, like, Ramsdale hit that ball out about 15 times in that game.
And you could hear the away fans cheering virtually every time he did it. They were loving it. I've never seen a group of fans loving the ball going long as much as I saw from Southampton fans this weekend.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, and just shows the little things you can do. But I guess
Fulham not their best attacking performance. They had a couple of chances, but they decided to make a few changes, hoping to try and get across the line in this game against Southampton with a few players rested, like Jimenez didn't start and stuff like that. But yeah, they didn't just create nearly enough, and a bit of a disappointing one. And it's games like this that they kind of need to win to push them. Making sure you get 3 points in this game would have put them right up into 7th in the league and would have put them above City, which we all would have loved. So sadly, not much from them. Another team with a new manager, well, two teams with a new manager, one more recently than the other, Leicester Wolves. Shows it's not a great bit of PR for Gary O'Neill this game, because it shows what Wolves are able to do as soon as they get a little bit more structure in that team. But a lot of it was by Leicester's own doing. Their defensive show in this game was not the best.
Yeah, it was a shambles. I mean, they've got Danny Ward in, who was past it about 3 years ago at this level. Yeah. I mean, James Justin for the second goal was non-league, Sunday league defending, and you can't be doing that. And I think that's going to be a huge wake-up call for Van Nistelrooy. You know, that he probably went into that game with confidence, and to come out with a battering is really, really not good for their hopes this season.
Yeah, exactly. Like, their defensive, I just look at it like they're the Danny Ward goalkeeping, but also the James Justin defending for that second goal just highlighted it. And it's the same thing that we said when they got Van Nistelrooy in, that they've basically brought in a project manager and sacked a keep me up manager in someone like Steve Cooper, and now they're bang in trouble again. And it seems really strange that they've put a manager in place who might play slightly more exciting football, although they didn't look great going forward. They created like 1 or 2 half chances, and they've just put themselves in trouble by making that managerial switch. I don't think Van Nistelrooy is a bad manager, but just where they were halfway through the season, going into the December fixture run where Van Nistelrooy's got no time to do anything at all with those players, has now put them right in trouble, and they're now one win in 5. They're now just 2 points above the drop, and with Wolves looking slightly better, they've got to put themselves in that they're going to have a fire on their hands. I suppose Wolves' fixtures are not great and Leicester's are okay, but I mean, no, they're not actually. Leicester have got Liverpool, City, Villa in the next 3, so it's a pretty rough end to the year for them. You must be quite pleased as a Palace fan looking below you at performances like we saw from Leicester.
Yeah, I'm so frustrated because in the summer this was the first season I'm like, I don't have to look down, and I'm looking down 3 months in at Christmas, which is just typical. But yeah, like, out of the two teams, like, you always thought that Wolves, like, 8 of their players were far too good to go down in that starting 11. You thought they could probably get back up easy, so you would probably, if you're not getting a draw, you'd go for a Wolves win. The Leicester City Steve Cooper sacking was interesting. I somewhat got it because I think some of his tactical changes mid-game were losing them points. But then if you're going to do that, you can't be then going for, as you said, someone who's a project manager, especially because I'm sure Leicester got charged by the EFL for charges. So I think if they go down, they may be in quite a bit of trouble there as well. So, it was an exciting appointment. And again, what we were saying earlier, like, you had these fans who are very, very obsessed with beautiful football over points a lot. So it's really interesting to see the owners kind of look at that and try and go with these managers who are project managers, but we'll see how it goes.
Into the final game on Sunday, Manchester United 0, Bournemouth 3. Bournemouth getting more points at Old Trafford again. I didn't see this coming. To be fair, Man United missed an awful lot of chances and Bournemouth were very clinical with theirs. Man United had more XG, more big chances, more shots in this game. So it is a case of Manchester United missing their chances and Bournemouth taking those. But yeah, that's exactly what they've happened. It's been not an easy start for life in the Premier League for Amorim. What do you think?
Oh, man, I mean, the goals they are conceding are awful, especially from set pieces. This
so
is definitely
fragile.
I know, and Amarin's probably looking at it like, wow, I thought this was going to be hard, but it's got worse. Like, it just shows how much Man United slipped up in the summer. They probably are wishing now that they didn't win that FA Cup, because it probably would have meant Ten Hag was sacked in the summer. So, yeah, they're a mess. And I mean, they lost to Forest at home, now losing to Bournemouth at home. No one is terrified to go to Old Trafford anymore. No. And that just shows how far they've dropped.
Yeah, and Bournemouth look pretty good, though. It's credit
really
to
good.
Them.
Yep, good record. I think they've won 4 of their last 5 games in the Premier League, beating Man United back-to-back now at Old Trafford. Iraola is just looking like such a good manager, and they're getting fully backed by their board. So it's a really exciting team they've got.
Yeah, they've 4 wins and a draw, unbeaten in their last 5. So yeah, really has massively spurred them on. And they're 5th now. Only 3 points behind Forest. They're in a European place as well. So yeah, that last, 13 points in their last 5 games is massively thrown them into the mix again. So they'll be really pleased with how their season has started. Manchester United, absolutely weren't. They've, I think, lost 3, 1, 2 in their last 5 as well. So that's not particularly great for them. So they're 13th and they will be looking for a massive improvement going into the second half of the season. But I'm not sure I can easily see it. They seem very inconsistent at the moment.
Yeah, no, they're just like Spurs. You could easily see them finishing 10th this season.
I think the big thing for them is I don't think they have any good finishers in their team. Like, is anyone at Man United actually a good finisher?
Yeah, maybe you could say a few years back you'd be saying Rashford right now, wouldn't you? But
he looks like he's not going to play for them again.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just sums up how bad United have been lately, where they had Højlund, an up-and-coming striker, who does have his moments where he looks really good, but, he's a young kid. You shouldn't be having to start him every week. And then they get Xerxes, who's basically another young striker who's got an exciting future, but isn't ready. It's just mistakes from above, and just half that team are just so past it. But they're unsellable. Like Anthony, no one's going to want to buy him. It's just they're stuck.
One player who is sellable is Marcus Rashford. It looks like he's not going to play again. It looks like he's going to leave in January. They've been quotes from him saying he's ready for a new challenge. Amarin's basically come out and said, if you're you should speak to me about that. Don't go making public interviews. He's then not been in the squad for the past 3 games. It looks as good as done, right? But where's he going to go?
No clue. If you're looking at the favourites, it's like PSG, Arsenal. I've even seen Chelsea in favourites, but you actually don't see him being able to go any of these places really, apart from PSG. Yeah, they are massively clutching and he's not in the squad now. So how do United have any bargaining power in that sale? You're probably losing money in the transfer sale on him as well.
Yeah, I really hope Chelsea don't go nowhere near him. We've already taken one Manchester United winger in Jadon Sancho, who does look pretty good for us, actually. Reasonable price. I think we're going to get him for 20 million when we decide to probably sign him. But yeah, the Rashford thing is really weird. I find it really difficult. For me, he's Mr. Man United. So I find it really difficult to see him playing in another shirt, particularly in England, particularly in the Premier League. So maybe it goes abroad, but it feels like a classic PSG. Throw money at it, hope it goes well. Someone could, if it goes well, you'll get him for a bargain price. He won't go for that much. You'll probably get him for much cheaper than he was worth at his peak.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you could see him fitting. I don't really think Luis Enrique uses his 2 strikers he's got at the moment. So you could kind of use Rashford up top if you were there at PSG. But again, I mean, it is a far easier division in Liga, and there's less, his pace would be really good for them out there. But then, I don't know, maybe Spain he could end up at. It'd be hilarious to see him at a club under Diego Simeone. I don't know why. I don't think he deserved to be at Atletico at all. But, I guess that's where he's trying to aspire to be, because I can't see it.
It does look like January, though. It looks like they're just going to let him go. Yeah.
It's crazy, that, and really crazy.
It's going to be a good January transfer window, I think. There's a few clubs looking for a few things. That is all the games. Let's talk a little bit about FPL. We're going to let you go first because you have smashed it this week, right?
Yeah, what perfect timing to get me on this show. And I know you've probably got a lot of FPL fans listening, so I am definitely an expert just for this game week. 105 points I got, which was really, really good to see. Just I didn't bench Rodgers, had Isaac, captain Salah, and just got points across the board.
Very nice.
Yeah, 115k rank, I think now.
Yeah, like big boost. You must have had a big jump this week.
Yeah, I was about 300k. I went up to 115k, nice. So I'm absolutely buzzing.
Do you own Saka?
Yeah. And
replacements. Cunha. So there is sounding like there's another report, on Twitter. Apparently we're going to hear from Arteta later today, but I've seen another report that apparently he has really hurt his hamstring and it will be out for several weeks, which is a shame. It's come at Christmas, because if it was a normal several weeks might be okay, but it looks like he's going to be missing for a fair few game weeks. So it does look like we'll be looking for replacements for Bukayo Saka. Any ideas on where you're going to go?
It just depends if I want to use the money elsewhere, because do I want to get like a better forward in? But it's really, really annoying that I cannot trust Man City and Kevin De Bruyne, because the 3 fixtures he has coming up, normally I'd be like, in my head, I'm just like, a bit of a differential punt. He's obviously Kevin De Bruyne, but I can't trust him. So sadly, not going to be going there. It's made a Saar I've seen people suggesting, but I think we have some tricky fixtures after. Well, we've got Bournemouth, then Southampton, and then Chelsea, I think. So, it's still some hard games from there. Luis Diaz, I've also looked at, but minutes risk as well. Just no one's fun. No one's fun to punt on.
Well, this is it. I find replacements really difficult, and we'll talk about my thoughts in a moment. So let's talk about it. I got 87 points this week. I took a -8, so that is a net 79. As part of the -8, I sold Morgan Rodgers. I sold Matheus Cunha. So that went really well. To be fair, I wouldn't have been starting Morgan Rodgers. The first 2 transfers, which I did for free, I bought Alexander Isak and I bought Enzo Fernandez last weekend, which benched Morgan Rodgers. So, that's not great. But the other 2, which were for the -8, I bought Daniel Munoz because I didn't want to be priced out, because Aït-Nouri was predicted to was predicted to drop. I didn't actually get that drop, so I could have waited. But I bought Ahmad for Rodgers with the second transfer. So that didn't go particularly well, but I did. Buying Munoz meant I got Mikalenko 7 points off my bench. And for anyone who's followed, I have the worst relationship with Mikalenko. Every single week, I either bench him for points or I start him and he gets nothing. And the only week I've ever got points from him now is when he's kept a clean sheet against my own team. And I just can't seem to write it. I'm going to bench him away at Manchester City this week. So hopefully he does get lots of points. The plan for me every week, once I made that -8, was to roll my transfers. And sadly, it doesn't look like I'm going to do that because I've got Saka. I do have Enzo Fernandez first sub, who I could just play over Saka. If it wasn't going to be bad, that's what I'm going to do. But I'll have to sell him, I think. At the moment, I agree. Like, replacements are really hard because I've got like Trent and I've got Isak. So I don't really need money for anything else. And which is why it's a real shame that he's injured for me, because I've got good squad value. But now that he's injured, loads of people just have money in the bank spare. In terms of replacements for me, like, am I going to go Bruno? Maybe. I'm not going to buy anyone at Arsenal because I don't know who to buy there. I could go to Spurs and buy someone like Maddison. If I knew who was going to play for Liverpool, it would be Luis Diaz. It would be someone like that. But with Jota being close to a return, you've got Darwin, you've got Gakpo, you've got a lot of games. I'm not sure I want to do that. So I could go down to someone like Gordon if I've already got Isak, double up there. But I hate to say it, at the moment, the most likely is Bruno Fernandes. And that gives me double Manchester United midfield, which I don't quite know how I feel about that. But that's where I'm at the moment. I do agree. I think the replacements are really, really boring. I don't like any of them. If City were half decent, if I knew De Bruyne or Foden were going to play every week, maybe they're worth a punt. But as you say, I think the most important thing is freeing up money to make sure you've got the likes of Trent and the likes of Isak in. That's more important than the actual replacement.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll be really interesting to see where people go. It's a shame that Odegaard is a world-class player, but when it comes to fantasy, he's just that bit before the goals a lot of the time, so it does seem like a risk. The replacements are not even looking... They're looking very worrying for me, that I've actually even started looking at Declan Rice because he's on set pieces. Yeah. But, it's not looking good. Yeah. I don't know where to go for it, and so many teams rotate around Christmas as well now. Exactly. So, you could even go for someone in the bottom half of the table, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that player rotated.
Exactly, and that's why Bruno, I feel like I kind of know what I'm going to get. Let's finish up with our predictions for next weekend then. The early kickoff, Manchester City versus Everton. I have predicted Manchester City to win. I've gone for a 2-0 home win.
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-0, tight game.
Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, I'll let you go first.
2-2, just.
I've gone 3-2. I do think there'll be goals in that one. Chelsea, Fulham, I've gone 2-1 Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you there, 2-1 as well.
Newcastle, Aston Villa.
Wow, I think 2-2.
Yeah, I've gone Desmond 2-2. We love to predict Desmonds. We do it every single week, several of them. Nottingham Forest, Spurs. I think this is quite a hard one. I've gone 2-1 Forest.
Yeah, that is such a hard one. I am going to go with 2-1 Spurs. I think they're just going to do it.
Southampton, West Ham. Southampton should have their new manager in the building.
That could easily be like a 1-0 West Ham, I'm going to go.
I've gone 2-1, although I don't think I see Southampton scoring particularly. Wolves, Manchester United, maybe as a hopeful FPL, maybe Bruno Fernandes and Ahmad owner. I've gone 3-2 Manchester United.
Yeah, I was looking at this one, I really struggled, but I'm going to go 2-1 Man United.
Liverpool, Leicester.
3-0 Liverpool.
I've gone goals. I don't know quite how I've got Leicester scoring, but I've gone 5-1 Liverpool. There's goals in this. This is the Boxing Day one that's predicted my 38 goals this weekend. Brighton, Brentford, 2-1 Brighton.
I'm going to go 2-2.
And finally, Arsenal at home to Ipswich.
4-0.
I've gone 3-1. Arsenal just leaking the odd goal at the moment. But
Very
that
true.
is all. A reminder, if you are not in our Predictions League, it is the Super Brew app, the purple one, not the orange one. The league code is Solo Fogs. There'll be a recording up on screen if you're on YouTube now as how to go and join. A quick rundown of our round standings for last week. Congratulations for round 16, which was the week before, to our winner, who was Shelby's Shiny Head. That is a tongue twister. Congratulations. You'll be entered into the draw at the end of the season to win a football shirt. And round 17 was won by Saka Spuds, just over Max Schillen, who came in second with 12.5. 13 is for Saka Spuds, and still the highest score so far this season is Dave with 21 in game week 9. So make sure you have joined if you have not already. It is, of course, weekly, so it doesn't matter if you miss the odd week. The winner of every week gets added to a draw at the end of the season. Luke, thank you very much for joining. Where can people find you? Do your little plugs.
Yeah, I really appreciate you inviting me on, mate. It's been absolutely lovely. Luke Talks Palace. Luke Talks Palace on YouTube. I'll try that again. And Luke Seychelles on Twitter as well, or X.
Perfect. We will leave all the links in the top of the description if you're a Palace fan or generally want a bit of that content as well. We will be back on the 27th in the morning with Luke Kempner. We will be doing a bit of a live stream as we round up the games from Boxing Day over the Christmas period. So make sure you subscribe to tune into that. The audio will be released on Spotify, on Apple Music, wherever you are, when that is up and done as well later on in the day. Thank you very much for joining. Please like and subscribe before you go. Rate us 5 stars, and we'll be back again very soon.